Hi guys, and welcome again to episode 4 of The Liberal Conservative. Holy shit. So much has gone on this week that although I started my podcast with a clear schedule of what I was going to talk about every week, because I did want my podcast to be a history lesson, unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, I've had to change the structure a little bit and still make this a history lesson, but also using real-time, right now, world news. And so much has happened this week globally and in the United States that I could not talk about it. So today we are talking about none other than the American military-industrial complex. Because this, my friends, this enormous lobbyist in the world, this is the biggest lobbyist sector in the world, is the root of all evil. So let's dive in. Every time the world is on fire, the same gender is striking the match. And of course, I am talking about none other than men. And this time, they've got nukes and Twitter bots and just basically all social media bots, right? Iran and Israel are at war again. In fact, they've been on the brink of war dozens of times since the 1979 Iranian Revolution. Why? Because they're not just enemies. They're proxy war machines, backed by global powers who profit from every explosion. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is actually a proxy war machine? And I'm going to tell you. Iran funds groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. Israel gets a blank check from the United States, and the U.S. gets to test its weapons, justify its defense budgets, and keep oil prices right where the energy lobby likes them. This is not about protecting anyone at all. It's about protecting the military-industrial complex. Like I said, it is the biggest political lobby in the world. Its entire job is to advocate for war at all costs. And Congress, both parties, salute it like it's God. Because there's money in it for everybody, or for them. So what in the real F is going on? Who benefits from this bloodshed? And more importantly, what can we do as women, as citizens, and as creators to fight back? Well, this is what we can do. Every generation gets dragged into a war. And war doesn't happen because it's necessary. It happens because it's profitable. And every generation is fed the same script. They hate our freedoms, we must protect democracy, while billionaires divvy up the Reconstruction contracts. Now, they probably had a better time of selling us this crock of shit when there was no social media and when there was less real-time news. Now they're having a very difficult time hiding their bullshit, which is why we're seeing an increase in surveillance everywhere. So the irony is that the same AI that they gave us to control us is the same AI that we're using to basically keep them on check. So Iran and Israel have never officially gone to war, but have fought through proxy conflicts in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Gaza. The U.S. arms Israel and sanctions Iran and deploys troops every time tensions rise. Most recent escalation, Iran launched drones directly at Israel for the first time in decades. Retaliation for targeted killings. The U.S. intercepted some, but troops were already moving forward when it happened. Before it happened, actually. Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex in 1961. He warned us against a permanent war economy that feeds itself through public fear and elite profits. His exact phrase was, "We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex." Nobody listened, least of all Dick Cheney. Yeah, that Dick Cheney. Before becoming vice president, Cheney was the CEO of Halliburton, one of the world's biggest military contractors. When the Iraq War began, Halliburton got $39.5 billion in no-bid contracts for fuel, logistics, and reconstruction. The war was based completely on lies. There were no weapons of mass destruction. And Cheney sold it to his friends and to the media, which of course never questioned a thing. And who paid for it? Well, we did, of course. 4,500 dead American troops, over 1 million dead Iraqis, and trillions stolen from social programs that could have saved lives here. Then we have the corporate pipeline. Raytheon, Lockheed. Today, war isn't just about oil. It's about contracts. Raytheon and Lockheed Martin are among the biggest weapons manufacturers in the world. Their executives bounce between government jobs and boardrooms. Every bomb dropped is a stock bump. They even write the legislation that funds themselves. And enter Project 2025, a blueprint for Donald Trump-aligned think tanks that would, 1, replace federal employees with political loyalists, expand surveillance powers, dissolve the Department of Education and the EPA, Environmental Act, and militarize borders, cities, and dissent. We're seeing it playing out in front of our eyes as we speak. Project 2025 is war turned inward. And chaos abroad, it's the perfect justification they need. So, who is making these decisions and why? These wars and these escalations are not random. They're not reactions. They're strategies. And they're made by the same men over and over and over again because they've been in power for a very long time. Men with power, men with lobbyists, men with money, men with blood on their portfolios. And let's name them. Of course, we have none other than Benjamin Netanyahu. His war is a career survival for him. Currently under indictment in Israel for bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. Despite this, returned to office in 2022 after forming a coalition with ultra-nationalists and anti-Arab extremists. How? Israel doesn't have term limits, and voter turnout was low, especially among Arab citizens. His coalition has just enough seats to hold power and crush dissent. Netanyahu pushes war because it delays his trial. Does that sound fucking familiar? It unites the far right, and it keeps U.S. weapons and funding flowing. He's not defending Israel, he's defending his own ass. Now, there is the Ayatollahs, martyrdom and state policy. Iran is a theocracy ruled by Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader. Ayatollahs are unelected religious rulers who hold power over the elected government. They use martyrdom, resistance to Zionism, and anti-U.S. rhetoric to 1. Keep their population focused on outward instead of inward, justify mass crackdowns on protesters, especially women, and maintain ideological legitimacy. They're not fighting for freedom. They're using war to bury revolution, especially feminist revolution. I often thought to myself that Joe Biden was complicit, or was he cornered, or was he just gone? What the F was going on? Well, Biden voted for the Iraq War in 2002. And because we have such short memory span, we forget this shit. But the truth is these people are all part of the military-industrial complex. So he voted for this war well knowing that there were no weapons of mass destruction. And he authorized over $17 billion in weapons to Israel since October of 2023, after the mass bombing of Gaza began. He vetoed a UN ceasefire resolution, knowing children were being killed daily. Is he conscious of the world he's creating, or is he just a tired figurehead propped up by AIPAC and Raytheon lobbyists? His top donors include pro-Israel lobbying groups like Democratic Majority for Israel, Wall Street, and defense contractors. And when Gaza burns, they all get richer. Then we have Donald Trump, autocrats and authoritarianism. Sold $110 billion in weapons to Saudi Arabia even after they murdered journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Promoted America First to justify abandoning diplomacy. Helped normalize Project 2025, which would replace democracy with rule by decree. Surrounded himself with fascist billionaires. Peter Thiel, a gay anti-democracy ideologue who literally owns Palantir. He's a co-founder and funds far-right candidates. Fun fucking fact, Hillary Clinton was on the board of fucking Palantir. Stephen Miller is the architect of family separation and militarized immigration. Elon Musk controls Starlink, which is now linked to battlefield communications, and also, interestingly enough, linked to election fraud. As we're seeing the news slowly break, and the news is slowly breaking by independent journalism, not by corporate legacy media, who will never report on this because they are part of the problem as well. Trump didn't create fascism. He gave it permission, and they gave him funding. What do these men want exactly? They want power without accountability. Shocker. They want profit without risk and control without consent. No way. Get out of here. And war delivers all three. Corporate media is an enormous propaganda machine. You ever wonder why every war starts with a headline, Israel under attack, Iran launches missile, U.S. defends allies, but never weapons deal approved, civilians dead, profits rise? That's because corporate media is owned by the same investment firms who own the war stocks. MSNBC, CNN, Fox are all backed by BlackRock and Vanguard. They frame every story to protect advertisers, donors, and shareholders. We're not watching the news. We're watching a script written by the people dropping the bombs. And you know what? Throughout all of this, women are the ones that experience war completely different. And why we rarely get to lead. This is why. War hits women first and hardest, not because we start it, but because we're always cleaning up what men destroy. Sexual violence is rampant in war. In every modern conflict, rape isn't just collateral, it's tactical. Ukraine, Russian soldiers used sexual violence to terrorize and humiliate Ukrainian communities. Survivors have testified about gang rape, public assaults, and the use of rape as ethnic cleansing. Sudan, armed militias have used mass rape against women from opposing tribes. Rape victims are then often killed or ostracized by their own communities. Gaza, Palestinian women are being denied access to hospitals, giving birth under rubble, while Israeli officials and U.S. media openly question their humanity. In war, women are treated as spoils, and their suffering rarely makes the final draft of fucking history. While men are lauded as heroes for killing, women become heroes for surviving. But they never get the recognition that they deserve. In war zones, it's women who run refugee camps, care for the wounded, bury the dead, raise the children born from rape, and yet they're almost never invited to the peace table. They're never invited to talk. We never even know their names. Never even know that this happens unless someone like me or independent journalists are telling you what's happening. Between 1992 and 2019, women made up only 13% of negotiators in major peace processes. The U.S. military, only 60% female, and almost none at the top ranks. We don't just experience war differently, we are excluded from the power to end it. Let's talk about COVID, because COVID was the dress rehearsal and the removal of women wrapped in one beautiful bow for the patriarchy. Let's connect the dots because they tried to keep this quiet. Between 2019 and 2022, the world saw the sudden exit of its most competent anti-war female leaders. Angela Merkel stepped down after stabilizing Europe for 16 years. Jacinda Ardern resigned abruptly after managing COVID without authoritarian overreach. Sanna Marin pushed out after sexist scandal for dancing, for crying out loud. Katrine Jacobsiter refused re-election after leading with care-based governance. All exited the stage. Then COVID hit, or actually they exited the stage after COVID, and with it came mass surveillance, contact tracing, AI best control systems, biometric passports, global obedience conditioning, the playbook for authoritarian control tested under the banner of health. These women weren't perfect, but they were much better than any male leader we've ever seen, excluding Nelson Mandela, who was probably the single most amazing politician that has ever lived. But they weren't warmongers, and they weren't interested in building a surveillance state. And once they were gone, war everywhere. Ukraine, Gaza, Iran, Sudan, and now political assassinations in U.S. soil. What would global policy look like if women ran the war rooms? Here's the answer. There wouldn't be any fucking war rooms. We would have diplomatic councils, not military briefings. Peace-building budgets, not trillion-dollar defense deals. Schools, clinics, green infrastructure, not drones. Women wouldn't just ask different questions. We'd reject the premise entirely. It wouldn't be part of the fucking narrative. And men are doing such harm to the world, and they are refusing to let go, and they rather destroy Earth, the only place where humans can live, than to give the reins to the natural born leaders, which are the women. Men have war rooms. We would have resistance, and we do have resistance. And if we want to survive what's coming, we need to stop mimicking the system and start replacing it. We need to have the power of unbending feminine influence. You want to know why Taylor Swift is constantly attacked, analyzed, and politicized? Because she represents something the war machine cannot control. Feminine influence that doesn't beg for approval. Her cultural power shifts elections, economies, and entire news cycles. She doesn't cater to masculine authority. She creates her own language of leadership through storytelling, loyalty, and vision, and a good heart. She was just at the Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital, and just her interaction, she's the most humble person. Yes, it could be some people could say it's a PR stunt because she hasn't said anything about what's going on in the world. So instead she's going to visit children. So what? Who else is doing that? She's not just a pop star. She's proof that feminine power doesn't require permission. What would a feminine foreign policy look like? I'm going to tell you. Let's say it's straight. Diplomacy, not domination. Collaboration, not extraction. Community defense, not military offense. A feminine foreign policy is not soft. It's strategic. It doesn't avoid conflict. It de-escalates it before it becomes profitable for billionaires. It funds preventative healthcare, education, and infrastructure, environmental protection as security policy, restorative justice instead of perpetual war. We don't need to bomb to lead. We need to dominate to defend. And the real resistance is economic. We fight back not just with votes, but with intentional currency. I've been saying this for a very long time. What we buy, stop funding corporations that profit from genocide, surveillance, or oppression. I know it's hard because it's almost everything that you interact with, but be intentional with what you purchase, who you platform. Stop amplifying voices that excuse fascism, even if they sing well or act nice. That includes all of the Kardashians. Who cares? She just spoke up. She's buddy with all of them. These people are the rot of society. All that they've done is extract from low income and middle America. And they have gentrified every single, sometimes they're more African American, sometimes they're white, sometimes they're not, sometimes they're like, these people are horrific human beings. Horrific. What we normalize. Start rejecting war culture in everyday decisions, fashion, entertainment, and even tech. In 2025, survival means economic rebellion. Platform matriarchy. This is a national security, literally. Not just for aesthetics, not just for diversity, but because patriarchy is killing the fucking planet. Matriarchy isn't about women replacing men. It's about replacing power based on domination with one based on coexistence, care, and courage. Men don't know how to do that. It's about building platforms that can't be censored, networks that can't be bought, systems that can't be bombed. You know who does this the best? Dogs. The evolution of dogs is actually a survival blueprint. Wolves didn't survive by fighting humans. They survived by partnering with us. The most successful species on Earth isn't the strongest or most violent. It's the one that adapted through collaboration. Dogs evolved to be cooperative, empathetic, and emotionally intelligent. They figured out being fed is better than being feared. And while men keep trying to win wars, dogs just keep winning the fucking long game. Now, you can call it a coincidence that every time women rise, there's a new war. But I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in systems. And systems that fear women will always choose fire. So let's choose differently. Let's organize. Let's vote. Let's resist, not by begging for a seat at the table, but by building a whole new one. One they can't fucking bomb.